Not easy. I'm a Mark Richt supporter. I've never, not one time I ever called for his firing. I haven't been happy with everything that he's done and every decision that he's made. I haven't. But overall, I think he's been good for Georgia. I mean,
definitely.
He's got us winning 80% of our games. We're going to a bowl every year. Most years it's a major bowl. I've been at the beginning of every year. I feel like we have a realistic shot of winning the SEC. And like you said at the beginning of the show, I'm old enough to remember when that wasn't the case. I sat through more than my fair share of holiday bowls, and I don't want to go back to that. That's for sure. So, I'm a Mark Richt supporter. I've been a lot more critical of his coordinators than I ever have.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, for the people that have been talking bad about Mark Richt, I mean, here's one stat for you. The only team in the SEC that Mark Richt has a losing record to is Florida. And, of course, that'll change soon enough because that rivalry is back where it belongs with our foot on their fucking head. But he either owns a tie or he owns a winning record with every other team. Now, I don't care what team you are, that's an impressive stat.
Right.
So I got faith in Mark Richt. I mean, he made the right hire by bringing in Jeremy Pruitt. And I was very critical, I'm sure you were too, several years ago on Mike Bobo. But, boy, has he turned us around. I mean, our offense is probably one of the more feared offenses in the SEC, maybe the country. So I have no more issues with Mike Bobo because he's turned it around. And our problem last season, and, of course, the few seasons before that, has been the defense. So now we have no excuse. Now, it may take Jeremy Pruitt a year to get these guys up and going. We've got to give him a few years to get his recruits in there. Then we'll see, what he's really made of. But as of right now, I guess we'll say he's got that free pass because this is his first year, and he's playing, with Todd Grantham's guys. So I'm going to give him, 2 to 3 years, see what he can do. But I have 100% confidence in Jeremy Pruitt.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. One more thought here for me on this schedule here, talking about stumbling when we're not supposed to or losing to somebody that we're not supposed to. So you always look for a trap game. Now, November 1st, we play Florida. Of course, that's in Jacksonville. November 15, we play Auburn. But sandwiched in between there, November 8th, we play at Kentucky. So that could be dangerous. Of course, the guys are going to be up for the Florida game, and they're going to have to get back up for the Auburn game. A lot of times it's hard for them to get up for these Kentuckys and Vanderbilts and any team in Mississippi and things like this. But so that Kentucky game, if I had to pick a trap game, one that we need to watch out for, definitely that Kentucky game sandwiched between Florida and Auburn.
Yeah, I agree with that Kentucky prediction. Now, and it's years past, if for some odd reason, a lot of those games Kentucky's have played, they've played us really close. Granted, we've come out with a win, but there's just no reason Kentucky should even be in the game with Georgia. That baffles me. I mean, Kentucky, it's like those guys will get up and they're ready to play football when it comes to playing Georgia. They play us really well, on several years, but at the end of the day, a win's a win, but of course people like to say, oh, you almost lost to Kentucky, blah, 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 blah. So we got to hear that.
Yeah. And, of course, we have an off week before Florida, which is always good.
Oh, we got the off week before South Carolina this year, too, so that definitely
South Carolina, yeah. So that's, I think that's good, in case we come out of that Clemson game with a couple of guys banged up or anything like this. Go ahead and give them a week off to rest up before we go up to world's largest trailer park there, Williams-Brice Stadium.
Yeah, I think all they have really worth mentioning was they got a biscuit hut. That's about it. That's you want to grab something to eat that's nearby. Biscuit hut's all you got.
I can't stand that place.
And
that's not all I got on the schedule here.
Storm crap.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's move on to another topic, the college playoff. Now it's about time we get this. Now, I am one of the biggest supporters when it comes to the new college playoff, mainly because I know you remember this. 2007. Who does not remember the 2007 college football season? I remember.
Every fan remembers it.
I remember it like it was yesterday, because I remember, that final week of the regular season. If I remember correctly, Georgia was ranked 3rd or 4th, and they were ahead of LSU. I think LSU was ranked 6th or 7th, and just because LSU won the SEC title, they jumped them ahead of Georgia, and they had 2 losses just as we did, and they jumped Georgia to the national title game against Ohio State. And the argument was, well, Georgia didn't win the SEC. Well, flash forward a couple years later, Alabama-LSU national title game when Alabama didn't even win the division. So that's the prime example of a college playoff needs to be in place, if you ask me. I mean, there's no question in my mind. If there had been a playoff in 07, Georgia would have been there.
Right, and those are just examples from me and you, a couple of Georgia fans. There's fans from 15 to 20 to 25 schools that have that same argument. Should they have been ranked number 2 instead of number 3 at the end of the year? Or, and this is going to solve some of that. Now, of course, it's a 4-team playoff. You're still going to have somebody ranked 5th, but there's no solution for that. I mean, even college basketball, who has 65 teams, well, somebody's ranked 66th. So you're always going to have that argument there at the end, or who's 2 or who's 3, who's 4 or who's 5. But a 4-team playoff is definitely a step in the right direction, way better than the BCS. Taking all these polls out of it, I think, is the right way to go, and getting that selection committee together in a room and just picking the 4 best teams and playing it down. Obviously, whoever wins the SEC is going to be one of those 4 teams. It would not surprise me at all for the SEC to have 2 of the 4 teams. If you look back the last 7-8 years, there's 2 or 3 times where that would have been the case, where you would have had 2 SEC teams in there. I don't think there's any other conference that's going to even have a chance of having 2 teams, but it would not surprise me at all for the SEC to get 2 teams in there.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely. I guess, going back to 2012, if there would have been the college playoff in place, no doubt Alabama and Georgia would have been there. Of course, we already mentioned 2007. Now, I'll go back as far as even 2002. Remember that Georgia team? David Pollock, David Green. I mean, we were loaded. We lost 1 game that year, and, of course, it was to Florida. But, again, 1 loss. Who's to say that if their playoff wouldn't, been in place, that they wouldn't have been there? That we had a really good team that year. There's so many years you've got the top 4 teams. You'll have a couple, maybe 1 or 2 undefeated, maybe 1 or 2 with 1 loss. I mean, how can you let a computer decide what 2 teams play for the national title? It's better to have a 4-team playoff than to just say, okay, let's put these 2 teams there. Let's let these 4 teams play to see, who deserves to go. I mean, I'm sorry. If there had been a college playoff in play in 2012, Notre Dame would not have been there. Believe me.
Yeah. And I don't buy this argument that it's going to ruin the bowl games or anything like that. You're still going to have interest in the bowl games. You're still going to have plenty of interest in the bowl games. They're keeping a lot of the same tie-ins. So if if the Sugar Bowl isn't one of the playoff sites one year, then they still get an SEC team. The Rose Bowl still getting a Pac-12 and a Big Ten team when it's not a playoff site, because they're rotating between the 5 different places or whatever. So I still think teams are going to have a reason to play in the regular season. I don't buy this argument that if college football has the best regular season, why ruin it with a playoff? It's still going to be the greatest regular season in sports. 2 losses and you're almost guaranteed to be eliminated from the playoff. There may be a year here or there where a 2-loss team could sneak in, but the regular season is still going to be just as important this year as it was last year. So I'm excited for the playoff. I think it's a positive change. I think it's something that'll draw a lot of interest, and it's definitely going to be a moneymaker for the NCAA and the networks and college football in general. So I just think it's a win-win situation all the way around.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. Also, this is one reason I think the SEC is doing good as far as this move is concerned. I know, I think it's 2016, Alabama's opening up against the USC Trojans. 2017, we're opening up against Notre Dame. And I think it actually starts in 2016 where an SEC team has to at least schedule one of the Big Five conferences, at least one game out of conference. I read something about that. That's going to help when it comes to strength of schedule, because if you've got, like you were saying, so you got 5 or 6 teams, and let's say they all got one loss, what are they going to look at? That schedule,
Right.
What teams had the toughest schedule? And, SEC teams played out of conference teams like USC's, Notre Dame's, Ohio State's. Those games are really going to matter, especially if you got all these other teams that got one loss. So, I'm always a fan of scheduling these tough out of conference games, and Georgia's been one of those few teams in the SEC that's been willing to do this on a yearly basis. I remember in 2009, we actually traveled to Stillwater. We actually went to Arizona State. We had a home and home with them. So then, of course, we played Boise State, and last year and this year we're opening up with Clemson. So at least Georgia has been scheduling these tough out-of-conference games. I mean, when you got teams that on a regular basis schedule high school teams, Auburn, but, scheduling these tough out-of-non-conference, games, that's going to mean a lot, and at the end of the day, hey, if it gets you in the playoffs, I'm all for it.
Yeah, me too. And as a fan, I mean, you want to win all your games, but, I mean, do you want to go watch Georgia play Charleston Southern, or do you want to go watch Georgia play Oklahoma State or Notre Dame or Clemson or Oregon or somebody like this? I mean, it's I understand the SEC is tough, and we play Georgia Tech every year, which is, even though they're terrible and an embarrassment to organized sport everywhere, they're still in one of the Big Five conferences. So we satisfy our obligation. We don't have to schedule Clemson. We don't have to schedule Notre Dame. We satisfy that obligation every year with Georgia Tech. But as a fan, I'm not packing up my car and taking everybody to watch us beat up on Charleston Southern. I'm just not doing it. But win or lose, I'd love to go see us play Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, Clemson. It's just a better experience all around.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
All right, sounds like we got a bit of a...
More so than us playing Troy or Charleston Southern. Those are games that, unless you just completely and utterly suck at Florida, losing to Georgia Southern, they can't even beat the worst team in the state. But, unless you just outright suck, then those are games that you're going to win. I mean, let's be real here. I mean, you're not going to have millions of viewers to tune in to watch those kind of games. Now,
right.
Oklahoma State comes to Athens, or we go to Stillwater, or we go to South Bend. Oh, yeah. Those games are going to get a lot of views. They're going to make a lot of money.
Yeah. I'd much rather see that than these cupcake schools. And if there are any Clemson fans listening, and I'm pretty sure that there are, if you need any more proof about how watered down the ACC really is, Duke had 10 wins last year. So stop with the ACC is a legitimate power conference and they're just as good as the SEC and blah blah blah. No, they're not. It's not even close. I mean, Florida State's average margin of victory last year was 45 points. They should have lost to Auburn. The difference is night and day. So enough of that already.
Well, I mean, I'm glad Auburn lost. I hate those assholes. But at the end of the day, you're right. Florida State blew out everybody. But when it came to an SEC team, they struggled. And quite frankly, I hate to admit it, but Auburn had that game. They let it slip away, But
yeah,
Auburn
played Georgia, Alabama.
They're legit, though.
Yeah, Auburn played Georgia, Alabama, and Missouri back to back to back. Florida State, at best, goes 1-2. in that same stretch. And it's not just Florida State. And that's what people don't understand about the SEC when they want to argue. Oh, well, Florida